All right, I want to bring in Shan Wu. He's a CNN legal analyst, a former federal prosecutor, and also a lawyer for Rick Gates, formerly, who is Manafort's co-defendant. Dave Jacobson is a CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist, and John Thomas is a CNN political commentator. All right, good to see all of you. All right, so Shan, you first, Robert Mueller is apparently trying to ratchet up the pressure on Paul Manafort, letting him know we mean business. You can't talk to people who are, potential witnesses. Do you think there is a chance now that Manafort may think again and potentially cooperate with this investigation, try to cut a deal?
Well, it certainly ratchets up the pressure just enormously on him, and it's a very tough blow for his lawyers. It's so much harder to work with your client when they're incarcerated. There's lots and lots of document review that needs to be done. This makes it much harder. In terms of can we see into the future whether this will actually cause him to cooperate, it's hard to know. He has a very tough defense team, and right from the beginning, they've been very adamant that they're going to go to war on this. But, Mr. Manafort's not a young man, and the physical strain of being in jail is also very hard, so remains to be seen. And
given you've been attorney for Rick Gates, Manafort's co-defendant, what kind of signal does this end up sending to others who are facing charges?
Well, that's a very consistent signal. Mueller's investigation has been very, very aggressive, very tough. The speed at which they've proceeded, they're really treating it like a mob investigation, the classic technique of looking for lower-level people and flipping them as they try to move up. So I think that continues to send a signal. This is an extraordinarily aggressive and very tough investigation.
And then, Dave, Trump is distancing himself from Manafort, saying, he was only working with the team for a short amount of time, even though it was really more than 4 months. And at the same time, the president is also using that IG report, Inspector General's report, to help justify that the Mueller probe should go away.
Right. I think what this underscores is, yet again, the president lying, trying to distance himself from the Mueller probe and from Paul Manafort, trying to disassociate himself with any of the taint associated with both of them. The fact of the matter is Paul Manafort played a key role in the Trump campaign. He ultimately helped propel Donald Trump to get the Republican nomination. He served from March till August of 2016. That's quite a long time and quite different from what the president said, in which I think on Friday he said only 49 days Manafort served on the campaign, which was totally disingenuous.
Something like 144 days.
Yeah, precisely, almost half a year. And not only that, but this was the key role in the primary campaign. Ultimately, you're running in the primary to get the Republican nomination. He helped secure it.
And John, wouldn't that ultimately make Manafort a little uneasy or feel a little angry? Maybe want to cut a deal if now the candidate who benefited from his work is now saying, we weren't that tight.
Well, I'm not surprised. I don't think Manafort's surprised at all to see the president wanting to distance himself. But what's fairly egregious here is Mueller's sweating a witness by throwing him in the clink for an unknown period of time. I mean, I'm reading reports today that he could be in there potentially for the rest of his life.
But reportedly, he went to great lengths to talk with witnesses.
Well, Alan Dershowitz says this is unfair because a judge made this decision unilaterally and did not bring it into the public for giving Manafort an opportunity to hear his case heard. This to me seems nothing more than a desperate Mueller saying, how can we turn up the heat on these people close to Trump to get them to flip? I think Manafort is, although I guess I'm sure it's terribly uncomfortable to be incarcerated, Manafort also has the financial resources to endure a certain level of prosecution over something that Donald Trump was right happened 12 years ago. We're talking about not registering as a lobbyist. That's what we're talking about.
Well, let me just say really quickly, though, this isn't the first time that Paul Manafort has violated a court order, right? He violated the gag order early on, helping to craft an op-ed.
By writing an op-ed.
Right, but it was a violation of the court, and this is him once again.
One of the conditions on being able to get house arrest. So listen to Rudy Giuliani, who, and Shannon, you as well, who now keeps bringing up this issue of pardons, and help us read between the lines. What does this mean?
My advice to the President of the United States, as his lawyer, not as a government lawyer, is no pardons. It would completely change the momentum that we have right now, because it's very strong right now. You can see the polls moving in the president's favor and against Mueller.
Then why'd you suggest it?
I didn't suggest it. I said he shouldn't pardon anybody. And the president said to me he shouldn't pardon anybody. What I said was, after the investigation is over, then it has to be considered as a governmental matter, not by me. And what the history has been is these things get cleaned up. Ford did it, Reagan did it, Carter did it, Clinton did it, and Bush did it in political investigations.
So you're saying after the probe is over, it may be cleaned up with any pardons?
If people were unfairly prosecuted.
All right, so Shan, what do you interpret here, and how wise is this?
Well, Giuliani continues to try to send this message with regard to pardons, even though it's a little bit of a mixed message at times. In terms of the wisdom, I mean, there is talk that this could sound like obstruction, but the pardon power is within the president's jurisdiction. He's got the discretion to do it. I don't know how much effect that's going to have on Paul Manafort sitting in jail talking about a pardon later down the line, but I think they're trying to reassure people through that public message, anybody else, don't worry about it, we're still watching this, despite the president's contradictory remarks about it.
All right, thanks, gentlemen. Shan Wu, Dave Jacobson, John Thomas, good to see all of you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks.